Good afternoon. My name is Renelle West. Lewis Carroll, in his classic Alice in Wonderland, wrote this: "The time has come," the walrus said, "to speak of many things, of shoes and ships and sealing wax, of cabbages and kings, and why the sea is boiling hot and whether pigs have wings. Callooh, Calais, we feast today on cabbages and kings." So today we're going to talk about many things. We're going to speak with a remarkable woman who has lived a remarkable life and continues to lead a remarkable life. Her name is Maryann Whitesell. Now, I'm a facilitator of Life Writers groups, and I first met Maryann when she came into my Life Writers group and spent several months writing her life story. Maryann is 77 years old, and she has recently been diagnosed with terminal cancer in her abdominal region, and she is not well. She is very sick, and she has a lot to share with us today, and so I want to introduce her to you right now. This is Maryann Whitesell. Maryann, thank you so much for being here and talking to us today.
Thank you.
So I want to start out with you first about your education and your levels of education.
Well, I was in training to become a teacher. And as a teacher, in Illinois, you have to go practically straight through till you get your master's degree. So I started out as a chemistry major, and I have a BA, a bachelor's degree in chemistry, with a minor in math, all right? And then when I went to graduate school, I majored in biology with minors in physics and mathematics. Then I also studied geology from Notre Dame, and I'll never forget that because it was really piecemeal. It was like once a week and then all summer and that type of thing. It was a difficult period in my life, a lot of study, but geology put together all the sciences and used a lot of the math that I had been learning. And it made science seem like a unit. There was a great cohesiveness in the various subjects. So I had that earth science background, got a master's degree in that. So I have 2 masters and a bachelor's. I never wanted to get a PhD because I was already having trouble keeping a job. My salary was way too high, and they didn't want to pay me. And I wouldn't accept less than what I was owed. So that's it.
All right. And talk to us about your religious background, Maryann.
Well, my religious background is really varied, and there were times of great confusion. I was born and baptized in the Roman Catholic Church. I had a grandmother who was extremely devout, and I went to church each Sunday from the time I can remember with her. It never bothered me that I was the only one from my immediate household that went for quite a while. And once in a while my parents would go and my little sister would come with. But that was my faith, and I was very serious about it. Went to Catholic grade school and then went to public high school and had some very good friends in that high school. And we used to sit in one of our study halls. We were in the library, and we would go into a room, what they called a carol room, and we would be the only group in there. And we would discuss what we think we wanted to do with our lives. And I remember there was only one thing that I wanted to become, and that was a nun. And I wanted to become a nun of the order that I had in grade school because they were just darling people. And the other girls all said, that can't be what you're going to do. You're too naughty to go. I said, well, they'll have to tame me then. But that was my goal, to become a nun, and it was a teaching order, so I was going to become a teacher, and everything seemed to fit together. Now, I was in the convent for 15 years, and toward the end of that period, I worked on, was at the time of Vatican II, and I worked on the rules and regulations that the Pope wanted the various communities to adopt. And I worked on the spirituality part. I realized that I was not capable of doing what he wanted us to be able to do. I just couldn't do it. My disposition was such that I was unable to accept everyone I met in the same degree of fellowship or happiness or greeting or taking in. I knew there would always be people that I just couldn't tolerate, and that bothered me, and I didn't want to be a phony, so I applied for a dispensation from Rome, and it came through. I, of course, when the dispensation came, thought I was a complete failure with my life, because I can't remember ever wanting to be anything else. And it took me several years to get over that, to come to grips with it. That was the hardest thing in my life, to come to grips with that concept of being a complete failure.
Okay, Maryann, tell us about what a dispensation is.
A dispensation at that time meant to me that the Pope and all the College of Cardinals released me from my vows. I had taken the vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, and they released them. Those vows were null and void. And I could leave the convent and I could go out into the world and do and be whatever I chose to do or be. And that's what happened. But it took me, I think, almost 3 years just to get out of the convent, mentally. I just couldn't do it.
Yes. So, what did you do after you got out of the convent?
I was contacted by one of my sister friends who was principal of a middle school in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. They had no science program, so she contacted me to come and work in that school and develop a science program. And that took my time for the 3 years and kept me away from everybody I knew, so I was able to come to grips with my life during that time.
And then did you have any other aspects of your life? Did you marry after that?
I did, indeed. 5 years after I left the convent, I met a man that I decided I could live with the rest of my life. And after about 3 months, I believe, we married. And we had a very, very good life for about 12 years. And the man that I married turned out to have alcoholic tendencies, to which he returned after 12 years of marriage. And so the last 12 or 13 years were rather hectic and difficult, and I came to realize that if we didn't separate, we would probably really hurt each other. So we did separate, we divorced, and it took a long time, because he realized, I think, that divorce really wasn't what he wanted. But he couldn't stop drinking by that time. And I left.
Okay. And then you had a second marriage after that.
Mm-hmm. Again, it was quite a few years later. I had come down to Florida, and I was living with an elderly aunt that lived in Hollywood Estates in West Melbourne, Florida. I really believe she needed a little help, both financial and physical help. But while I was there, I worked in a nursing home. I had quit teaching after 30 years and went to school and learned how to be a nursing assistant, and I started working with old people. I never considered myself an old person. I guess I was, but I didn't pay attention to it. And I enjoyed being with the elderly. The problem that I ran into in being a CNA was, number one, my strength. I just didn't have the strength that I needed to lift these people. Number two, I was, because of my age, one of the older ones, and was given a lot of the AIDS patient if we didn't take AIDS patients, we would lose the ability for people to have Medicaid. So it was kind of a blackmail situation that made everybody unhappy, but the AIDS people were extremely difficult to handle, to deal with, because they were so young and didn't understand, really, why all of a sudden they'd be leaking blood. And, of course, it was my job to clean all that up. But I got through that part and decided at the time I became 62 to go on just half duty. I worked on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday every week, because those are the days in the nursing home when there's always a shortage of CNAs. So that's what I did. And I joined the bowling team here at Hollywood Estates on Fridays, which was kind of exciting. I was put on my second husband's bowling team, and that's how he got to know me.
And so you married him.
Yes, it was. We eloped. We ran away, and we went up to Georgia, and right over the line. The name of the town was Kingston or something similar to that, but it was the second stop once you got into Georgia, and we got married there, and then spent the night in one of the motels over at St. Augustine. That's one of my favorite places in Florida. And the next day we pretty much spent the day in St. Augustine. But that was fun. I had never done anything like running away and getting married before, and it was really a lot of fun. And the man that I married was one of those men that had those deep blue eyes that you just fell right into, and you just didn't want to get out of them. they were always on me, and he was a special man. Yes, indeed.
And how did that go? What happened then?
Well, he was elderly. He was about 19 years my senior. But that's what I needed at that time in my life. I needed a husband, I needed a father figure. And he made me laugh so much. He was a military man, which now is practically saving my life because I have military benefits. And I don't know exactly what to say here.
So, what happened to him?
Because
he's no longer in your life.
No, he's no longer in my life. 6 years ago, on December 2nd, December 2, he passed away, and all his systems shut down. And I found out from his closest friend that his goal in life was to live to be 90, because nobody in his family had ever reached that age. He did. And it was terrific. He was 90 on August the 12th that year, and then he spent a few more months with me. But I missed him something fierce. It just, I became, I guess, very, very depressed. I didn't realize that I was depressed, but I went to a therapy and all that stuff just to get my head back on straight, which I probably should have done when I left the convent. I shouldn't have done all that struggling on my own, but I didn't know about stuff like therapy, mental therapy. But anyhow, it all works out. I came to grips with it. It took me about 3 years to stop hearing him talk to me. That's a little weird, and I don't understand it, but it was the case. That's what was happening.
So talk about, you've talked about your Catholic background. So talk to us now about how you practice your religion now.
Well, there was a time when I felt that I was stagnating. I wasn't growing spiritually. When you go to Catholic Mass, it's always the same. What changes is the lessons from the Bible, and they follow a certain scholar or biblical writer throughout a year, and then the next year you have another one. That's all well and good, but I was not getting what I needed to grow, to have my faith in God grow so that I could receive the grace I needed to really live a good life. And I didn't know what to do about it, so I would, when I had some free time, I would go over to the shuffleboard courts and I would just sit there and try to think about God. And one day, the wife of a very close friend, her name was Hazel, she came by and she looked at me and she said, "What are you contemplating, wife? So you look like you're just studying away." Well, I had nothing in my hands, but somehow she knew that I was really pondering something, which I was. And I told her, I said, "Hazel, I am so tired of stagnation. I'm just not growing. I'm not getting any closer to God. I can't talk to him because it's like he doesn't want to listen to me." I was really in a bad state. And she looked at me and she said, "Sunday you're coming to church with Howard and I." And I said, "Okay, I'm willing to try anything because I really am not growing." So I went to church with those two, and I have continued going to that church or one like it ever since. They went to a non-denominational Christian church.
Okay.
And even though I have changed, because the church changed churches, I have not changed from that religion. It's a body of Christians that openly state they are Christians and follow what the Bible teaches.
All right.
And that's it. They have no other creed except the Bible. If it's in the Bible, you follow it. If it's not in the Bible, God didn't tell you what you have to do, so you do what common sense tells you what you have to do. And that's how they think. And they read the Bible every single day. And try to meditate. Now, I started doing that, and I have never stopped. So I try to always do it at the same time, and interspersed with the reading, I oftentimes just sit there and think about it, or just stare into space and let God put some ideas in my head. And that's what I'm doing primarily now. I am trying to open my mind so that I can hear whatever it is that God wants me to hear.
So, you're facing a challenge now. And this challenge is your health and your life and your pending death. Mm-hmm. And we don't know, as I said in the beginning, we don't know how long it's going to be, but we know that you have terminal cancer. And you're already on hospice. We know that the hospice nurse is coming once a week.
Yeah, she's still
and you're in care of hospice now. So how are you dealing with this? And how does your religious faith factor into this?
I think my religious faith factors into this very heavily because it gives me an attitude of acceptance. I firmly believe that, at least I have been doing that ever since I joined this church. I firmly believe that the whole purpose of this life on earth is to learn how to obey God, to learn what His demands are, to learn what His personality is, in the Trinity, each one, to learn. And you don't do that by not studying. You have to study if you're going to learn. So I have really worked hard at going through the Bible. And every Bible has a slight differentiation in the translation. Mm-hmm. So I bought several different kinds of Bibles, and I compare often one with another. And I get a clearer view of what it is that's being said to me. Mm-hmm. and when I have a question, St. Paul I find very difficult to understand. And I thought I was kind of an educated person, but his degree of brilliance or scholarship is far beyond mine. He was really a brilliant man, and the way he puts words together, when you go over those words often enough, always contain a message. You have to figure it out though. It's not just always evident there when you read it in the book. And I check on that. If I have any questions, did I interpret this correctly? I will, at the next Bible study I go to, I will ask. Now, I have stopped going to the Bible studies because of my health, and I do regret that, but I think that's going to have to be now because I get too weak. In terms of what does my faith tell me how to react to this, I didn't realize I was sick for a long, long time, and members of my family believe that it all started at least 3 years ago. Now, I don't know. We don't have proof of it, and there's no point in pondering that because we'll never know. But I do know that when I finally went to the doctor, there was something real wrong with me for the first time in my life. I have been very, very healthy, blessed with a healthy existence, and knew how to work hard. But this thing's got me down in the sense that I can no longer do what I really see should be done, and that does irritate me a little bit, but I take a deep breath and tell whoever's with me that perhaps they would like to do the floor or whatever, whatever. Anyway, I'm just too used to doing everything by myself.
So you're finding yourself becoming more dependent on other people.
Yes, and it's a good thing because they all want to help me. They know that I'm sick and they want to do things for me. And I've never been able to let them because I didn't need them to do anything. So now it's kind of a table turn situation, but it is very hard for me. I think my sister is finding that out. It's hard for me to say, I need to drink something, I need to eat something. My life has totally changed. The attitude toward the disease is one of total acceptance. It was me that caused it to get as far as it did without seeking medical help. That was my choice. I didn't know it, but it was my choice. And why blame anybody else? It doesn't make sense. And I'm sure God has a reason for me, and the reason that I choose to believe is my work here is finished. I have done it. Whatever it was that He wanted me to do or to take care of, it has been done. And I'm very pleased about that. My work is finished on earth. And now all I can think of is I'm going to be seeing the face of Jesus. I'm sorry. I'm going to be able to see God and melt into Him in a way beyond which I was able to melt into Gordon.
Yes.
And that I cannot conceive.
Yeah.
So I'm very thrilled about this whole thing. I want to experience death. The two greatest things in our lives are birth and death. Well, you don't experience birth because you have no recollection of it whatsoever. But death, yeah, I think we do and should expect to experience it. I don't want to sleep away. I want to know what the process is like, and I want somebody with me that I can talk to about it. I'm hoping I will still be able to have the faculty of speech.
So is there a tie-in about the idea of experiencing this death in as a wide awake fashion as possible, as wide awake as you can be, as conscious and aware as you can be? Does this have a tie-in to any of your religious beliefs?
Oh, I think it's all of them. I really believe that one has a choice to be saved or not to be saved. And that's the primary choice that you have to make. And as I jokingly say, when I got down here in Florida, which to me, and I hope I don't offend anybody, it's the armpit of the nation. It's so flat, and it's so hot, and it's so humid. My first thought was, I am not going to continue sinful things. I'm going to give all that up because I know how I suffer here, and this is not even part of hell. It's just the beginning, you know, and I'm thinking to myself, this heat, this hot place is not for me. So in that sense, yeah, it ties in. Everything
So
ties
you look forward to going to heaven,
Yeah.
and you have done the work to be saved.
I think I have,
Mhm.
yes. I think I have. And the feedback now that I'm getting from people with whom I have worked here in the park and with whom I have worked in my church is all positive. So I think I have done what God asked me to do.
And what have they told you, Maryann? What are people telling you?
That I'm a special person.
Mhm.
That they have learned a lot from me and through me, which I never realized people thought. I always try to be unnoticed. I don't like to talk about what I have done in the past and stuff. If I give somebody a donation or something, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want it broadcast. That's between me and God. And so this whole recognition, I mean, people are coming every day here to see me, to bring me some soup or a casserole or some such thing. And they all say to me, Maryann, I don't know what it is you have, but you're something special. Now, I think they're very sincere. Well, I never knew they even noticed me.
So you're getting a lot of love these
Yes,
days, and a lot
yes.
of respect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't know what else to say.
Uh-huh.
You, I think, are in the same category that I am. And
How so?
well, I believe that you also do a lot of things for people. You give yourself to your students.
Mm-hmm.
You give yourself over at the place in which you live by performing for them free of charge. And that's something that brings you joy and it brings them joy. And you worship in your own way. Your way is not the same as my way, but I know you do. I know you worship. I know you believe in God. That is not a question.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope to see you in heaven sometime.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add that I haven't asked you that comes to mind?
I think this is pretty adequate.
I think it's more than adequate. You've been a blessing. You're a blessing today, and you've been a blessing in my life. You know, you and I know, and I can say this. You have given to me, as you know, when I first moved into Hollywood Estates. One of the first things that happened was that my roof was leaking, and I came in bankrupt into a house that I inherited here.
That was in poor shape.
And it was in very bad shape, and my roof was leaking, and you sent over your person to fix the roof, and he did a beautiful job, and I never had another leak, and you paid for it for me,
that
and
was,
I could not have handled that.
That was Lawrence. He was just here before you came.
Yes. So you sent Lawrence over, and I so much appreciate that, and I blessed you then, and you've been a huge influence in my life.
Thank you.
And you touch everyone's life that way.
I never knew that,
way.
Renelle.
Yeah.
I really didn't. I
But
just
you
was
do.
going about doing what I do.
Yeah. Well, I think that you can think about your life and the way that you are. That has been a life well lived. And it has been a life in which you have given so much to so many people. And now it's a life where you're learning to take. Because taking is the same as giving. And I think you
guess
know
so.
that.
I've been told that. It's just I've never had to.
Yes.
I
So
was
now
always
you're
self-sufficient.
Now you're in the next phase
Yeah.
of the
I call
taking
it the last chapter.
the last chapter.
I'm in the last chapter.
The last chapter. And I think that your faith and the life well lived has been a source of of the healing of your spirit.
Thank you. I know you're right, because that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we would hope when we talk about healing the journey home. That's what we would hope, is that our spirit is healed. Maybe not our body, but our spirit.
Well, I've always had a little problem with people who go through extremes to fight cancer and stay alive. Now, I had no problem if they were parents. I understand why they would want to be there for their children. But for somebody my age, I don't understand. Because we've worked our whole lives for heaven. Well, why fight going there? See, that never made any sense to me. And when I said that to the doctor, she got this big grin on her face and got up and gave me a hug and a kiss. And that was it. We never talked after that. That was the last time I was in her place.
Wow.
That's all I know, Renelle.
Well, we give you a big hug and kiss, Maryann. Thank you so much.
I hope this helps somebody that's watching.
It's going to help many people.
Okay.
And thank you so much for this gift, for giving us this gift
And
today.
as time progresses, and I actually get into the death phase, I don't know what they call it. Maybe things will happen very quickly, maybe they'll happen very slowly. I have no concept. But if you can be around, I can at least tell you, and you can write it out.
I would love that.
Yeah, I would love to have you do it, because my family wants to know.
We can have another session. We can do this again.
All right.
And
But I'm not ready yet. I've gone as far. I have sick days, the days when I really don't know if I'm going to make it to the end of the day. And then I have days, consecutive days, where I feel nauseous, very nauseous, like right now. But nothing's going to happen. I know that. I've learned that. And then I try to grab a cookie or something to eat. And I keep losing weight, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
So that's part of the disease. I accept that.
Acceptance.
Yeah.
That's the big one right there.
And there's no sense fighting it.
And we can learn that lesson throughout our lives. We're never too young to learn about acceptance and the importance of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. I like that a lot.
Good. That's
Maryann, I'm going to let you go get a cookie.
Yeah, then I'll
Thank
stop
you.
being so sick to my stomach.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.